We're going to jump in here. We've got Rolando Rosas from Global Tech. He is a master seller in the drop shipping and all things Amazon space, especially around headsets. We're both wearing headsets at the moment that Rolando has tested, sold, done reviews on, has fantastic traction. So, Rolando, we're here to talk about Amazon Data Dudes, or ADD. We've got Brandon Checketts and Jordan Checketts, CEO and COO of Seller Labs, and I'm the product manager over at Seller Labs. And today we've invited Rolando here. We're going to talk about Amazon data and how it's currently helping or challenging global tech. And Rolando, just before we started recording, he was going to throw out 3 or 4 things that are kind of the nuts and bolts of some of this data that's going on inside global tech. So let's jump into that.
All right, thank you, Will. I appreciate that. So I think every Amazon seller that is been on the platform for a while can all say that things kind of there's things that you need to have, things that you wish you could have, and then there are things that are absolutely critical. And sellers that have been on the platform for a while have all cobbled different solutions around some of these 4 areas that I think are critical: listings, ads, inventory, and keywords. And when you have those 4 areas to really look after the business on Amazon, you really need to have not just insights into the data, but actionable intelligence. So what do I do? So what? So what? There's a lot of companies that could give you data, but the thing that I think I mentioned to you before, Will, was that if there's a way to have intelligent notifications of that data, or the data gives me not just insights, but something to do with that information, then as a user of that data, I can assign other people to look after that, right? That may not require as much money as, an owner or a co-founder or somebody else of high value that it's a lot of time, a lot of money to tie up somebody on that level to go look at the data, analyze it, and decide an action plan around it. So if there's a way to not just extract the data, but then put the data in a way that it can be actionable and decisions can be made on that in an intelligent way, then we can have somebody much junior look at it and then present, whatever we need or whatever we need to extract out of it further up the line into, a CEO role, or somebody on the C-level side, right? So that's kind of the way I look at it from those 4 perspectives. And I think I've said to you, each one of these has different ways of trying to go dicing at it and looking at it.
Love that. I'm actually curious to hear. So Jordan is as an Amazon seller as well. So I want to hear his perspective. And then I want to ask Brandon to throw out some ideas around what he's seen. And Brandon also did a ton of Amazon selling a couple of years back, still does some Amazon selling today. So I'm curious to hear his aspect, because he's the total data genius on the call here in terms of aggregating. He's probably pulled more data from Amazon than anybody I know. So Jordan, what would you say to those 4 items and the idea around actionable insights?
I really like them. I haven't ever thought about at that, kind of that high level of if I had to break this into 3 or 4 areas. I agree with those 4 areas post product. For me, I still say product is king. Like all of those 4 things you just mentioned are so much easier if you have a good product at a fair market price. So I would say, assuming you have the product, then yes, 100%. I like those 4 areas. I'm totally with you though. I can't even count the number of softwares that I used over the last decade where it's like, here's data. Oh, we've got all this data. You just manipulate the data. And it's so overwhelming, especially like I could dive in there. But to your point, it's just like my hourly rate's so much more expensive that it's really difficult for me to have to do it. But the data is just so cumbersome that my $60,000 a year Amazon employee or something, a lot of times they can't wrap their brain around how to actually use that data. So on the deliverables side, I completely agree. And we've actually talked a lot about this at Seller Labs of like, hey, we don't just want data. We want, here's the data and here's what we suggest you do with the data so that you can see what the actionable item should be. And you can look at the data to verify to yourself if our software made the right decision, right? So there's a validation there as well. But so yeah, I really liked your 4 areas though. And I completely agree with them. Inventory and inventory management has been a big one for us. It's like, okay, it's like ordering inventory is one thing, but especially over the last couple of years with all of the supply issues that we've had and the shipping delays that we've had, it's like inventory has been a difficult challenge because our lead times, which used to be 6 weeks, are now 6 months, right? For some of our products, like it's just insane. And so to be able to adapt to that. So inventory has been a big one. And as we'll talk a little bit more about data warehouse, but one of the things I'm most excited about is an inventory forecasting application that we can use this data where it actually is predicting inventory on a very accurate level, and it's adjustable. So it's adapting to changing lead times and all that type of stuff. So, but I really liked your 4 areas. I think those are awesome.
A lot of sellers spend a lot of time and park a lot of time in the, which products to sell, right? And trying to find sourcing and, which one are going to be the winners. I just recently saw a set of bunch of videos on social media that really drove me just straight batty. And they were just basically, I'm going to show you how to be successful on Amazon. Go to Alibaba. Then if you see a product you like and you're interested, it sells on Amazon for $30. Alibaba has it for $1. Go on Amazon and sell it. Now you can make a fortune. Now I'm oversimplifying it, but I've seen a lot of videos of that, and people that call themselves experts or FBA consultants do this kind of thing. And it's just maddening because you can't be successful by taking that advice seriously.
It's too easy, right?
Like 10 years ago, you could have.
And your margins are gone.
Yes. Imagine if I gave you a basketball and I say, basketball, here it is, Brandon, be Michael Jordan, because I gave you the basketball. That's not going to happen. You got to work. Even Jordan was cut out of his high school team because he wasn't good enough initially. You can't just say, I'm going to show you where to get product, and now you just list yourself against the top competitors on Amazon against that, and all of a sudden you're going to make as much money as the top competitors on Amazon for that exact product. It doesn't work that way.
No, there's some data. There's some data behind all of that you need to go in and find those actionable insights and bring that around. So to bring it back around, listings, ads, inventory, keywords, not just extracting data, but actionable insights. Brandon, what do you have to say to that?
So I have a couple of things that I would mention. I'm curious if you didn't include financial data in that, and that maybe that's kind of included in some of that. But I would tend to ask. I would ask if financial data should be included in there as well.
Well, yes, from an ROI perspective, and we're looking at things from an ROI side of things and where the money should be spent and that kind of thing. Obviously, and that's, to me, all 4 of them work together because all of this gets at cash flow, right? Mm-hmm. I want to understand where to deploy cash.
Yeah, so I would say sort of how Jordan said, assuming you have a good product, I would say assuming your financials work out, or those 4 things I would say are kind of focused around the operational and the performance of your business. I guess there's things about sourcing the product we're not talking about. There's things about tracking your finances that doesn't address. But as far as like the day-to-day operations of the business, making it go, I think that would be a good 4.
Well, I actually don't think that financials isn't a bad one to add. So there's 5 categories.
I would say all of them are held up by financing, right? You need, or cash, or whatever you'd like to call it, Brandon, because without cash, you can't make any of this happen. And without cash continuing to come through the operation, it certainly falls apart real quick.
Yeah, and I would say maybe it's the larger you get, or maybe the more complicated you get, the more important the financials are to understand, right? Because
absolutely,
it's easy to be fooled by the numbers if you don't understand the actual finances behind it. I know one of the things that we've talked about with Jordan, and I think with Tyler over at Seller Accountant, is the return on working capital concept, right? If you've got a business that makes you $1 million a year in profit, you can't actually say that's good or bad. until you understand how much working capital it takes to make that $1 million. If it takes $100 million in working capital to make that $1 million, is not nearly as good as if it takes $1 million to make $1 million. So
absolutely, I agree. Agreed. I know for me, one of the things that there's so many, like if you take ads for example, I am hyper focused right now on the ROAS, return on ad spend. Anything that is low, I don't want to put money in it. If it's, a 5, 7, 10, 12, even 20, how can we make that spend that we got $20 on $1 being spent? How can we then add more fuel to that? Is it possible to keep getting 20 for every dollar that we just spent?
Yeah.
Rather than just growth. Everybody's in different phases. I like making money. I don't like being close to the edge where, we're growing, but the margins are thin. That means I got to sell a truckload of it. And that's a hard thing. I got to deal with more storage and more this and more that, but more manpower.
Yeah.
Let me just make as much profit as possible so that then I could redeploy that cash, maybe buy more inventory, maybe have money to hire more people or try some new things.
Yeah, when I talk about finances, that's one of the key things, right? Is like everybody's always focused on the top line. How much money am I making? And it's really hard, especially in an inventory-based business, to really understand how much profit you're making because you've got so much tied up in inventory. So it's really easy to think that you're doing well because your revenue is going up and up and up. But at the same time, you're like making less profit because over time margins are getting squeezed. You're spending more on advertising. Your freight's costing more. All inbound freight, all that stuff goes up. So it's not enough to just say your revenue is going up from year to year. You got to look at the bottom line. So.
100%.
Yeah, I've been saying this for years. I swear probably half the Amazon sellers out there are losing money and they don't even know it because they're not good at accounting for all.
Or said another way, half of the products that the seller is selling may be losing money. They might be having some that are profitable, but part of their catalog is not profitable.
Well,
they're not looking at unit economics. They're looking at the whole picture. And a lot of times those non-profitable SKUs are hidden because the other profitable ones are making up for that. And so they think, hey, as a whole, I'm being successful. And they don't dive into the unit economics.
No, and it becomes more exaggerated the more SKUs you have. It's easy to, probably manage, handful of SKUs, right? 4 or 5 SKUs. You can see the direct line, oh yeah, I spent here and this is where the cost and all that stuff is going. But I think you get 100, 1,000, 2,000 SKUs or above that. And then how do you manage that at scale? And that's something for us that in the last 9 to 12 months since COVID, how do we better manage that? So that
talk
our
about
entire Go ahead.
I was gonna say, talk about your data at that level. It's sort of like the per product level. Like how do you feel like your data, do you have good data at that level, or is it starting to get too? Okay.
Yes, and so I'll put a plug in here for Will, who's helped us automate and integrate a lot of those tools in place because, we did some analysis a while back ago, and we probably need this, quadruple our staff to manage the type of order volume that we have and the SKU level count that we have if we would not have implemented some of the integrations and automations in place. So in order to manage that data, we really dive into on a per SKU level, what's working, what's not, what's profitable, what's barely profitable, what's really popping off for us in terms of volume and profit so that we can better balance it comes down for us really, we don't have a treasure full of, money we could just keep going to, hundreds of millions of dollars like a big, large enterprise. So where can we best utilize the resources we have and which SKUs are popping? So every month we look at our top 20. We try to focus on more SKUs, but my time and energy with my gal that focuses in on the operation on this, we spend and we do a deep dive and we break down what's best returning on investment. Where are we seeing more returns on a product? Because returns eat away at your profit really fast. And Amazon's made it way too easy right now to return anything. And now you have to pay as a seller, you have to pay the return cost and the shipping. So and now and you can return product at retail as well. So in a world of Amazon where you can return anything that you want at a drop of a hat. I'll walk over here, I'll take it over here, or I'll print a label. You got to be able to look at that. So now we also look at how many returns are being generated, and we also track that so that we can keep an eye. Whoa, this is getting out of hand. Now, what's going on? Is there something in that listing that we forgot to add, or words or videos or something else that can bring down the return rate? Because sometimes customers just frankly get a product and they don't look at the manuals, or maybe like for us, it's, it may require a few steps for them to hook it up and use it properly. So then we look at, okay, this is higher than the norm. And what's going on? Oh yeah, you know what? That listing doesn't have any videos on how to use.
So I got a question there around that. So as you kind of zeroed in on returns, and I love that idea of zeroing in on returns. Are you currently capable of watching like a return rate across everything that's there? Do you feel like you have holes in the data? Are you just looking at those top 20 for return rate? Like how are you monitoring returns right now?
So we look at returns on a volume basis as well as an overall basis. So we'll know of the top 20, we know overall from top to bottom, all the SKUs, what our overall return rate is. Let's say it's 5%, just for number's sake. And we have a particular SKU that's double that at 10%, right? Something is wrong. That when we have something that far out of the norm. So then what is it? Is it something that we've done like in the listing, or what we've found the case, and quite often when there's a blip like that, the complaints that come back on it and give it 1-star rating, yeah, I couldn't charge it. And then you see another one, I couldn't charge it. Or the battery it died really fast. So
question on that return rate. So you're watching that. How often are you running your return rate report? Like if let's say that you had it
monthly.
You do it monthly. And are you only doing it monthly because it just takes a fair amount of time to like aggregate all that data? Because one of the thoughts that's coming into my head is, what if there's like a bad shipment? Like a lot of what you do, it's direct from the manufacturer, right? You got these different things. So that product doesn't actually pass through a Global Tech employee's hands in a lot of situations. So there could be like, let's say, a bad lot at the manufacturer. And so all of a sudden you get like 5 or 6 returns in a day when normally it's like 1 a week. Like, do you have anything in place that helps you monitor that sort of return?
We could increase the interval. So the problem is not the data. The right now, since we have a pretty good grasp on returns, and a lot of it doesn't fluctuate a whole lot, we can go to a monthly interval. Now, if we had some intelligent thing that told us, hey guys, your black variation of this product, it's out of the norm, you got 20 shipped back in 1 day. Oh, that would be good to know, because maybe we have 1,000 in stock of that lot. And we've done this before where we saw 3 or 4 complaints and they were all the same. And then we dug into it. Oh my God, yes, they mislabeled this from the manufacturer. Or, oh my God, they put the wrong product in the box. That's happened.
And the wrong product in the box could be your 3PL that's putting in the wrong product in the box, or could be like somewhere the directions of peanut butter goes here, jelly goes here, slap it together, mail it to the, somewhere somebody missed a point.
Yeah, and it usually was the manufacturer in China. That 9 times out of 10, and it's because their Google Translate Chinese to English doesn't always compute properly when they look at even the spreadsheet with pictures in it. So we've had several times where we've had to empty out and do a removal order, which is not cheap, it's not fun. You get things in little boxes instead of just one big pallet of stuff.
But you got to catch that as quickly as possible.
You got to. Other
feedback's going to be an absolute nightmare.
So we have to eat it. So having something that says, hey, look, something just happened where you have an unusual amount of returns based on your average for all of your products would be good to have for those folks like us that may have a bunch of SKUs. And you're just kind of on a cycle of when you kind of look at it and, oh, wait a minute, let's see what's going on over there.
How do you like consume those? Is that like an email message that comes in, a Slack channel thing, a tool you go look at? Is it like how would you prefer?
Right. Well, prefer it. Notification. Notification, either email or some other method that allows me to decide how I want to consume that, whether it's on my phone or on my email or both, right? If it's part of an app, then does the app send out notification to tell me that event has just occurred?
And then do you want, what's your preference on, I'm curious what you'd say is like, okay, maybe you realize the returns are a significant part, and that's a core differentiator for you. Does it do good for you to recommend a product like Seller Labs, build that into it? Or would you rather consume the data and come up with it yourself and not share that piece of information?
Be greedy with it.
Yeah,
not give it to anybody else. I don't want anybody else to compete, right?
Another way of asking that is like, how special is your formula? Is it something that a third party should generate, or do you want to just have access to more of the raw data and you build your special sauce and keep it to yourself? Either because it's special and proprietary, or because the formula for calculating it is unique to you in some way.
I tell you, right now we're able to see the return rate on an app that we use, and it gives us that on a per SKU basis.
Okay.
So it's nothing unique right now.
Okay.
There's that information is available through Amazon if you want to consume it with the raw data. They also they have a business report, as you said. The data is there, but it's clumsy, right? And I believe that's probably where they're generating these numbers from, and just getting a report via API, spitting it out to the app. So the part that we don't get is the intelligent notification about that.
Nobody's monitoring that.
Exactly. So we just do it on a monthly interval, and it's better than nothing, but it could be better, like you're alluding to. It absolutely could be, but much better than what it is.
For me, it feels like the value here, if we're talking about an intelligent notification, is the monitoring, right? You haven't asked your operations lady to go in and watch this closely because you don't see a ton of variance as of right now. It's generally pretty steady, but every once in a while, and you just mentioned 3 or 4 instances that were like, oh yeah, one time we had a bad lot and we had to do the return thing, and it was costly.
Right on.
Like had something been out there that could notify me of like, ooh, there's a spike. A return spike, sellerreturnspike.com sounds like Brandon's gonna go find another domain name there. The dude, if you knew how many domain names he has, that seller space or seller then insert name of product.
He's the one that took all the good ones, huh? Now I know who to talk to.
Not many of them. I got a few.
He's got a few, but no, that's interesting. So the valuable part here is the monitoring of that norm. And I think that idea of like a variance, like monitoring, I mean, most things, right? A spike in sales, a drop in sales, a spike in returns, a drop in returns, like all of those things, I think kind of give you some ideas of like, ooh, there's a variance here.
I think you hit it on something. I have not heard it put that way, but that's another way to say it. Monitoring the data, right? It's just like monitoring service at your house for an alarm, right? Yeah, there's some central call center, right? That gets an intelligent notification that says, hey, your window broke downstairs. Let me call the police, right? And then they call you on your phone and say, hey, everything's okay over there? There's nothing like that yet on the Amazon side, and maybe it's time to.
Well, I said there are lots of alerting things, right? Somebody can alert you if a photo changes or your title change. But that's like a very binary change, like change from A to B. There's nothing really that says your normal return rate is 5%. So if it goes up to 10%, that's abnormal.
And that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
because there are things that will also say like you got a return. You can get an alert on an individual return, but there's nothing that really says based on your averages or whatever the outlier detection algorithm is, it's outside the bounds of normal. So that would be kind of interesting to look at. But there's all kinds of metrics you could throw at that.
Yeah, and when you have those events, and I'm sure almost any Amazon seller that's been selling for a while has a story close to that or something like that. Something went wrong at 3PL, they put the wrong label, or something. Even Amazon themselves, it's happened to us. We send a 3-pack and they break it up into individual packs, right? And all of a sudden you get a bunch of people that paid 3 times as much for something and they get 1.
Yeah.
And so, and we've had to go backwards in time to try to identify the root, and it was Amazon. So something like that, then it shows up on the data like, wait, these returns are too high for this product. What's happening, right? And so at least it's something that signals that something's happening. Look at it, because if you keep letting it go, negative reviews will go up. You'll lose more money.
Hey,
Right.
There's another place where you could watch for a variance, right? A variance in your reviews. So like if your review average is about 3.7 on a regular basis and it drops to 2 or 1, like you don't normally see 1-star, 4 1-star reviews in a row. Like I need to know about a drop in variance.
It goes in the positive direction too. Sometimes it's like, what happens? Oh, I had a big jump in sales yesterday. What happened? How do I repeat that? I imagine there could be positive things that happen too. But
and now you're hitting the area that's really interesting, which is how this is where I've been spending more time with my people, is how to identify the patterns that now are leading to success. And that's where the data gets hard, because Amazon has a couple of new reports: the search query report, search performance report, and all of it. How do we then attribute this to that? And on putting those different relationships together and correlate them is then, oh yes, if we use these set of keywords on our listings, we've seen, and actually that's what we did today with my staff meeting. We did all of these, and all of those listings went in the right direction. And so being able to understand those relationships so that as a seller, I could double, triple, quadruple down, and let's do more of that. That is really interesting, right? And I would imagine that, again, I'm talking about advanced sellers only because to me, not a lot of sellers care about this. And the ones that want to make 6, 7, 8 figures are the ones that say, how do I gain a competitive advantage? How do I throw better money more intelligently at what I'm doing? They're going to get that.
How do you run your business as far as like on a unit by unit level of like, how do you price it? Do you have a way of then subtracting your Amazon fees, your FBA fees, your advertising fees, your cost of goods sold, your returns? Like, do you have a unit way of actually calculating your profitability?
Yes, the answer is yes. So we have an app. We have an app that we use that gives us that data. And what we do is on a regular interval, we review the products that are sold. So our top 20, we do this deep dive on. And what we do is look at how much each unit is attributing to profit. So after fees, so after ads, after returns and all of that, how much money is this making? And then it's for all those top 20. And we could go through all of the listings and we get that. But our focus is on the top 20 merely because they drive the revenue. I mean, SKUs 21 through 1,500 aren't selling at the same rate as 1 through 20, right? And so we can then apply those types of learnings, because a lot of products are similar in nature, right? They're not the exact, they're different manufacturers. But we can apply a lot of learnings to essentially groups 22 all the way down to 2000. But yes, we get the information on the app. We look at it. We're able to see on a per unit basis what it's generating in terms of profit. And then we could decide, what, product number 20 right now, it's generating a lot of profit, low volume. And again, how do we get this one at 20 to jump up to 10? Should we throw more ads? Let's look at how much ad spend has been on this one. Oh yeah, we didn't spend a lot compared to number 1, number 2. So then, as I said earlier, ads and keywords. How do we boost it? We got to put ads, but how do we do that intelligently? Now, you can have an agency do that for you, and I haven't found one that's really worked for our needs. So how do I throw good keywords at the ads that we have or create?
I was gonna say, I think that's a super interesting example. It's like, okay, not a lot of volume, but our margins are really high, right? Now, as an Amazon seller, like you've got options. You're like, okay, I want to increase my volume. Do I throw more money at ads and maintain high margins? Or do I actually reduce the price some and then that'll drive more volume and I keep my ad spend the same? Like, do you just typically follow your gut on that, or do you have any data points to make those type of deep level decisions?
Gut plus research equals winners, right?
Yeah.
And I would maybe throw in a little bit of experience. I'll give you an example of a product. So we have an accessory where there are multiple sellers, not just on Amazon, but off Amazon, that sell the exact same product. Our price on Amazon is by far one of the highest for this accessory that's under $25. Some other sellers on Google have it for like 15, 10 even, $10, $12. We're at $23 on this accessory. And we've had to increase our price multiple times because we were running out. And we kept it up. And instead of rolling it back, once we figured out, okay, this is how much we need. And so you can go against the grain when you raise prices some of the time. And what I think you have to do in order to feed that and try to exploit that is, in this product, what we did was we changed how we showed the main image of this product. Everybody was showing the exact one or two images in the same angle. So if you are on Amazon and you type in this product that you're searching for, you're going to see, first, you got to show up on page 1. If you're on page 2, forget about it. This doesn't even matter talking about it. You got to be on page 1. And then if you're on page 1, all of these products show up and they all look the same. Ours all of a sudden looks bigger, different angle. You can clearly see the markings, like the certification markings on it. And so now people have more confidence, and this is my theory, people have more confidence, especially on something that looks very similar to everything else, if what I'm going to get is exactly what I see right there, and I could see it in a way that's presented a little better than everybody else that's on page 1. And that's what's allowed us to sell this particular product above everybody else in terms of pricing. So it goes against the grain. And so now, how do I do that every time? That's the hard part.
Yeah.
How can, because it doesn't always work out. But you can.
I was gonna say, I love that you threw another variable in there, because before we were talking about, okay, price or more ad spend, and then you were like, well, what about quantity? If I know I'm gonna run out, I'm gonna raise the price, because like profit is king. Like you want to make those decisions that drive bottom line profit. And sometimes, that's a multiplication of quantity plus your dollar profit margin. But then if you're running out of inventory and you're going to run out, then that's a whole nother thing where it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to increase the price. If I had infinite inventory, I wouldn't be doing this. This is a bad decision. But because I know I only have this much inventory, I'm going to sell out regardless. I want to make as much profit on the inventory as I can. So like, there's just so much data that's needed to drive all these decisions. And to your point earlier, it's like, there's no way you can analyze this. You need those smart alerts of like, hey, FYI, on the back end, we analyzed your data. We think you need to do this, look into it.
And you know what, specifically on inventory, I've been trying to work on a working theory about that. And I heard somebody else recently that confirmed what I was thinking, which is there's something in whether it's the algorithm or the way Amazon works, where if you run out of inventory, you will be punished by Amazon more than just about anything else that you can't control a lot on Amazon, right? There's limited things but you can control what's in inventory. And in those two separate cases, the one I just gave you, where we raised the price and had more inventory available, and then in another instance where we were on some other listing competing against 40 other sellers on one listing, we saw over time, slowly, over time, our share of sales on that listing increased, and only because we were able to keep inventory in stock at FBA on that listing, because we hadn't changed our price. The competition on that, there were huge fluctuations from the bottom to the top in terms of pricing, but just having something in stock, our share of sales went from like 0.1 to 0.4. And that alone was like, oh, something's happened. And then 0.5, and then 1.0, and then 1.3. So then what's happening back there that Amazon's rewarding you for having inventory? And it's having inventory available. That's like having a misbehaved kid. That's the only way I could explain it. Misbehaved kid, you're going to put them in timeout. And then when you do get stuff back in stock, after you run out, it is not just you pick up where you left off. It's a hard, long climb, because again, Amazon's put you kind of in a virtual timeout because you're in punishment. You're in the doghouse.
They're rewarding those who are good at their inventory management and staying ahead of us, which kind of goes back to that alert that we talked about last week, which is that idea of like a very complex algorithm of like you're running out, like that, finding that reorder point. Honestly, this has been a fantastic discussion. To go back, we talked about financials, we talked about listings, ads, inventory keywords, as far as like data categories. We talked about how it's not just about extracting the data. We talked about how it's about finding that variance and getting an intelligent alert. This has been a fantastic episode, I think, of Amazon Data Dudes. We are going to hit that stop recording button. Be sure to keep subscribing and tuning in. Excited to see this in our next episode of ADD, Amazon Data Dude.